Hey, good afternoon everyone. Thanks very much for hanging around for this afternoon's Quiz the Guru session here in Edinburgh. Obviously we're recording this and it will be uploaded to YouTube in due course, so it gives you an opportunity, and your colleagues who couldn't make it, an opportunity to see what we've been talking about, and also to sort of gain from the experience. So that will be going up online in the next week or so, after I've had time to edit it, etc. What I'd like to do is basically ask the audience to participate in whatever form they wish. If you have a question to any of the panel, please ask away. If you've got issues that are non-product related with any of these guys, please bring them up. And we'll start off, I think, by allowing everyone to introduce themselves, and then so have a thought if you've got a question that you'd like to ask. And then we'll kick off from now. Okay? Thank you very much. So, if we can start from that end of the table, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Okay. My name is Suzanne Waugh. I'm Regional Sales Manager for IndigoVision, covering Scotland, the north of England, Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland. IndigoVision is an Edinburgh-based CCTV manufacturer, IP CCTV. We have a complete security management solution, so that means that we manufacture our own cameras and our own network video recorders, alarm management, and as well as integrating the third-party systems and third-party cameras.
Hi, my name is Scott Davies. I'm from Razberi Technology. I cover the north of England and I'm the regional sales manager. We have quite a unique server switch or server storage option. We're based out of Dallas in Texas, and obviously we're growing our business through distribution at present.
I'm Don Wilson from CDN Distribution. We're a wireless distributor and we specialise in millimetre wave and other frequencies, basically from 5 to 60, 70, 80 gigahertz. So if you have any questions on that, feel free to ask.
I'm Fawson from Comnet. I'm Regional Sales Manager for North of England, Scotland, Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland. We're a US-owned global manufacturer of transmission solutions for surveillance and comm spaces.
Okay, moving on. Any questions from the audience to the panel? You know where their expertise lies, so if you have any questions at all from the panel, just to kick off with.
Well, I'd like to ask you a question. The topic you spoke about before lunch was about the move from analogue into IP and the further move into IT, dealing with IT managers and whatever. Is that what you see the biggest challenge, is how companies start to get to the IT managers, and what do you think you need to do to be more ready for dealing or working with the IT managers?
I think, yes, inevitably there will be a need to deal with different individuals within the organisation, and largely because of converging in terms of responsibility. The network is their domain, and we are, as an industry, are looking to put effectively new devices and new applications onto their network, or possibly onto subsidiary networks. The requirement is definitely there in terms, it's two ways really. First of all, learning the language that they speak, because they do speak a different language. And I did an event in Gatwick this time last year, oddly enough, and I had a network architect on the panel. Now, in truth, he could have spoken a language that none of us in the room would have understood, but he didn't, because he knew who he was talking to, because he'd been briefed beforehand. And I think that transition that we're probably looking at is where we assimilate knowledge in terms of networking and IT, and the IT people assimilate understanding of physical security, etc., etc. So it's going to be a two-way street. It's inevitable that there will be issues, there will be clashes. It's like going through the transition when business machines went from sort of desktop units to network printers and all this sort of stuff. They went through the same pain barrier. They had to get staff who were traditional photocopier engineers, for want of a better term, to learn about networking, about communicating with IT, and they still bumped heads, regularly. It's taken, I'm sure, years and years for it to become a much more smoother operation, because they're just different beasts. But where there's a will, there's a way. In that particular case, there was a political will within the industry. The manufacturer said, unless you certify your engineers, you don't get our product. If you don't get our product, you lose your customer. Not rocket science. Everybody put their engineers in for training to get them up to spec so they got the product. So I think that's, we're not going to get that level of support from manufacturers, I don't think. But at the end of the day, yes, we need to, as an industry, we need to assimilate the IT skill set, certainly to a degree, so we can talk on off the same hymn sheet. And as time goes on, I think the IT guys will just see it as another opportunity. They like to develop their domain. The more applications and the more product, the more devices they have on their network, the bigger their CV gets. And so at the end of the day, we sort of perhaps look at there's more than one way to skin a cat. Effectively, I think that's the key. And once you get them on side, and then you start moving into the other things we were talking about the non-security applications of some of the technology, it's much easier for them to buy into it and to communicate that up the food chain to the decision makers. So yeah, it is a challenge, but equally, if you're not willing to make that step, then partner. Take somebody with you who understands and, if you like, can translate for you, so that you do have the ability to communicate with people who, in some cases, aren't very good at their jobs, in truth. There's a lot of protectionism within the IT game and technical support, because they don't really know what they like to say, think they know. And it's not until you press them that they begin to show their vulnerabilities, and that nobody likes to be seen as an idiot. So it's a bit of a type of. Can I ask across the panel here, having experience in the big bad world, what's the nature of the relationship that you've experienced with the IT managers and network engineers and network strategists? Start again, Suzanne.
I think coming from an IP CCTV and IP security perspective, I think there's a bit of a learning transition, and it's always good. When we're kicking off a project, it's always an IT manager always starts with someone at the other side of the table that's like, that's not coming on my network. But once you've got to sort of lead them through, and you've got to sort of build their understanding of how the solution goes together, and why this would be a kind of favourable option for their IT network, in terms of giving them a confidence that it's a workable solution to put, for example, IP CCTV on a corporate network. For example, if that was the project. But I think that there's definitely an alignment of understanding that has to happen before you can both kind of go forward. But you have to take that time, and that needs to be part of the planning at the start of the project.
Would you agree with that?
Having sold BMS for the last 4 or 5 years, it all depends on the client, and it all depends on the product you're using. There's a lot of new products out there that allow you to forego using the client's network, or independently. 9 times out of 10, when you're talking about a larger installation, you put your own network in, or you create a tunnel or a VLAN. There's lots of other options there where you talk to IT people, but 9 times out of 10, what they fear can be worked around quite easily by doing edge storage, by using their network for actual viewing clients and transmission, and actually keeping a lot of the bandwidth off their network. So there's lots of other products out there now that can allow you to do that before you start. But it's about understanding how you're going to develop the project. Being really honest, once you start to get a system over sort of 20-30 cameras, most sites you'll have a serious impact on the throughput. So you've got to be thinking about smart design in the first place. So I think it's most of the time now it's about smart design in the first place, and working with the IT manager. And if you're not impacting his network, then he'll work quite happily with you.
Your experience?
Yeah, from our perspective, we tend to deal a lot with the integrators, and we're finding more that I guess they're not frightened to ask now for help. We don't have all the information, but we can certainly get hold of a lot of the information to help knit it all together. And I think the way that you see it going forward is many tools out there in the marketplace that's readily available. And if they're not, there's a lot of modelling tools that you can use to sort of get the solution that you want at the end of the day. And I think we're seeing more of the people sort of discussing it with you up front, and between you come to what you think is the right solution. At the end of the day, hopefully to fit the requirements that's being asked, and that's where we come from.
Finally,
Yeah, that's the. I think to go back to what Scott was saying there, I think there's a lot more products and solutions out in the market that allow people to actually separate the IT requirements of an organisation from the security requirements. And we'll go into a lot of organisations now where they are two separate networks, whereas 5-10 years ago, when there was this ascent of IP products, IP cameras, IP access control, there was this tendency to try and dump everything on one network, with the reluctance of an IT manager who didn't want loads of bandwidth video sitting on his network, which was used for data and all sorts of other bits and pieces. Now it's quite easy for a security company to go in, put in a fibre network, put in a Cat5 network, the switches, etc., and keep that separate to the information needs of the company. I think that all those solutions are already available; they're off the shelf now.
would you see the if you're going to start putting separate networks in, would you see that limiting the opportunities for higher levels of integration and perhaps non-security applications of the information?
Well, yeah, I think that's done intentionally to keep the Wi-Fi, for people's tablets and whatnot away from the security network. There's redundancy and resilience queries that people would rather have their Wi-Fi drop off for a few hours in the surveillance system. I think that's being done by design rather than by just organic.
One thing I would say is, if you're asking that kind of question now, you should have been asking that question 4 or 5 years ago, because we're way into that now. And what I understand is a lot of people out there now in the IT industry, they aren't the smartest people in the room anymore. When you start to dig in a little bit to some of these people who are in their little empire, you understand that they're not quite as smart as possibly your technical people who you're with. And we've been having those conversations for 4, 5, 6 years now. So the market's changed, the products have changed to fit that market space already. So really, those sort of conversations we've been having for the last 4 or 5 years.
Can I add to what Scott said? There are a lot of design engineers who fall into this category who are now Cisco certified, who are able to put together networks without breaking a sweat. They're no longer a challenge or something that sits purely in the realm of the IT manager. The IP is firmly in the hands of the security engineers.
But that's sort of like the, should we say, the new generation of installing integrators, and unfortunately there's still a sizable number who have yet to make that transition. and that's maybe where the fear factor is.
Well, it's difficult because sort of 18 months or 2 years ago, the IP market in the UK tipped to 64%. Now, I can't understand if a market is tipped to 64% 18 months ago on IP and has grown again from there. If you've not dipped your foot toe in by now, it is, correct, yeah. And I do understand there is a fear factor, and that's why, there's a lot of products out there now that are enabling people to look at, rather than looking at a server with a PC workstation, with a network controller or a switch, and you can look at a box that is quite nice, it's got an inbuilt switch, whatever, and it's something that you look at, and the engineers, the technical people aren't afraid of it, but if those 3 boxes are split up and somebody looks at it and goes, oh my god, how do I connect it? But if you show them the box all in one, they can look at it and go, oh, right, I understand that. So I think, like I said, there's a lot of products coming through now that are tailoring themselves towards that easy changeover.
Finally, obviously, you have actually hit the nail right on the head there. And I think the statement that you should have been asking these questions 4 or 5 years ago is absolutely correct as well. The next question is, now I'm in a situation where I'm promoting cloud-based systems, and I have to muddle between, just getting around that little small the firewall and the other protection that goes onto it. So you can do a sale, you can get a system in. What's to stop you going back in a year's time and find the system's not operating because of the changes on the firewall and the protection that come along afterwards?
I'm not too up on cloud storage. I completely understand where it's coming from. I think cloud storage at the present moment in time is possibly a little bit too much too quick. And what's great with cloud storage is, let's say for instance we've set a system up where we're doing some snapshots and we're doing event recording and we're sending that small amount of data from say a 1 or a 2 megapixel camera in a snapshot up to the cloud. Great. You know, somebody opens the door, we get an alarm trigger, we get some VMD, fantastic. Streaming video to the cloud from Bradford University, who've got 300 cameras, really? It's not attainable at present. It's not something we can do. So I think at the moment you've got to tailor your expectations to how you're going to achieve a solution. And like I said before, there's a lot of new products coming out. Cloud is, you know, obviously we sell storage and we sell, you know, for clients. I think the two biggest issues are: would you want, as a business, your security storage going off-site from a secure area into the cloud?
Maybe I should clarify.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. What I'm talking about here is basically if you're putting in a management system or a fairly large access control system where you've got no local network and you basically don't have a local server, you're just downloading your operating system from the cloud. That's where we're at. You're taking it to the next stage, and I totally agree with you. No, I wouldn't want to be doing that.
No. And that's why I think at the moment there's a lot of debate going about cloud. And simply, I mean, we look at the off-site transmission side of things at the moment, which is, you know, we're still further back from. You can't even transmit now to some central stations a 1 megapixel image because the pipe's not good enough if you've got a lot of stuff coming in. So I think there's a lot of other things to overcome in our industry before we start to look at, you know, taking the next step. In my opinion, anyway. But I totally get where it comes from. You know, if you've got a network or something fails, that's why there's a lot more. The good part of it is there's a lot more things built in now, so that if something goes offline, we can send an email. If a hard disk fails, we can send it. You know, unexpectedly, we can send an email out and get someone there to repair it. But with the cloud, you know, what is the cloud? You know, one of the nice things is it's great to look at, but we hear all these nightmares about, you know, some of the biggest companies in the world being hacked. You know, Apple. You know, people are getting hacking their information. So if you're a security company, would you want that information in a position where somebody can hack into it? I don't know. It's and I think it's the amount of data as well. You know, if we're trying to put small snippets up there, fantastic. As things get better and networks expand and fibre comes in and we've got those controls and 4G rolls and the next level rolls in, then yeah, technology is going to overtake us.
But the infrastructure's not ready yet.
Yeah. The infrastructure's not even ready for some of us to have decent broadband. Yeah. Let's be honest, we've got Co-op's one of our biggest customers. And it's fantastic. We have a piece of nice operating software that tells us what's happening with every single unit we've got in a Co-op. And I can guarantee you, I can look at it and go, there's 10 units offline. What we'll do with the software, we'll go in and we'll say, we'll look at the heartbeat, but we'll look at the heartbeat now over a half an hour period, rather than a minute or a 30-second period, simply because we know the broadband in that area is 256 or 2 pixel leg, it's nothing. So we know it's going to keep dropping out, so we can structure that now. As that starts to change and the basics become better, we can grow with that. Yeah, definitely.
Any other comments on that topic?
I think you're right. I think, you know, these people are lacking confidence in the cloud. I think at the end of the day, because the bandwidth's not there, people are not going to be using it. And I don't think people, again, are happy with actually sending all the data back off into the cloud at this point. Until the service gets better, which means faster broadband, better connectivity, is just not going to happen.
I think not until there's security standards for the cloud and cloud-based storage that are signed off, because at the moment there's still emerging standards. It's certainly not something that you'd want to, I guess, encourage when the sort of that kind of infrastructure isn't about in the background.
I think there's a possibility in non-mission critical environments, possibly the residential area, where it's not so critical. You may not require the level of bandwidth because it's not a commercial system. It's a domestic system. I think the possibilities there may be
still the amount of storage that you've got to be able to dump up there. You're talking terabytes, not gigabits.
There's going to be a trade-off with the price of storage coming down.
Yeah. But it's still, you've got to have that.
What's the benefit? I mean, essentially, what is the benefit of putting it into the cloud apart from your
keep it local, you get best image quality.
The other side of that is we're always looking for better quality. So at the moment, we look at a 1 megapixel or a 2 megapixel camera compared to a VGA. Fantastic. We're drilling at detail. We just released 4K. You know, certain customers out there have got 29 and 32 megapixel cameras already running an H.264, but there's still a large amount of bandwidth and storage from those devices. We're always looking to go more information, more all the time. So as we push the boundary with storage, we're always pushing that megapixel boundary as well. So I think we're always going to be playing a little bit of catch up.
H.265 should make a bit of an impact on that. The compression should be more information on the hard drives and stuff.
And hard drives generally, I mean, Seagate are just releasing their 8 terabyte drive now. So you know, we're always playing that catch up. You know, 2 or 3 years ago, if you wanted a gig switch, you know, they were £600,000, £700,000, £800,000. Now, £300 material at the Cisco switch now. So, you know, I think the thing is, it's with every manufacturer, it's about hitting the market at the right time when what you're doing and how you're developing ties up with technology.
The cloud thing, if you look at the standards now, we're an NSI Gold company. If you look at NCP 104, it's based on an analog CCTV system. So the standards are going to change to look at IP and things like cloud storage.
Standards tend to play technology, don't they? As opposed to the. Any other questions from the audience? Stunned silence. Oh, there's another
Go
one.
on, we have a one for the wireless guys. I myself have been involved in the wireless for quite a few years and had one or two fairly major town centre systems. And the question was, how can I trust something that I can't see? Your go.
Well, you trust fibre. You can't see it's in the ground. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's easy accessible. It's easy dug up. I suppose it's easily tampered with. I think when you're going towards, you know, the high spec systems, which you're looking at 70, 80 gigahertz, very, very high bandwidth, it's totally secure, and off the back of it you've got AES. So I think now they're building it, and you're getting 5 nines uptime, because a lot of the major carriers are using the equipment as backhaul. So I think you know, really you've got to have the confidence in it, and the latency is quicker. So at the end of the day, it's easily installable, and the return on the investment is much quicker.
Don't want to ask about that one.
Thank you.
I'm going to give you the answer, by the way, don't you?
Well, we're obviously selling wireless kit, but first of all, say it's not for every single installation. There are obviously lots of cases where it's just not the most appropriate medium for transmitting from A to B, and you can obviously set up redundant paths using, you know, a hardwired kit. You can have backhaul paths and all that, but yeah, I mean, if you take each installation on its own merit, there are obviously going to be situations where you haven't really got another method of getting that signal from A to B other than wireless transmission. It's come a long way. You can encrypt to whatever level you like now, pretty much. So there are certain measures you can take to alleviate the cost of things. I think you have an answer already.
I do, because I've been on the end of this question myself on a few occasions. The way I got round it was to quite simply say, do you go on holiday? Do you fly? You're on your way back to Manchester Airport and the airport's closed, and you've got to fly into Edinburgh, and the captain comes on and says, we're doing a full instrument landing. How is he doing it?
Absolutely.
Good response.
I think there's in the early days of IP, it was all around, wouldn't possibly put video into a network. Well, okay, but there's billions and billions of pounds moved around the world over exactly those networks every minute. So, and it's trusted by business, commercial. So why are you so concerned about putting video onto a net? And of course now it's commonplace. So it's just that transition, isn't it?
It's true in our area as well. I mean, if you look at wireless, usually to either transmit a camera or a couple of cameras, or on bigger bandwidth stuff to link control rooms, do backhaul stuff. Well, hopefully you'd have a redundant path. Worst case scenario, you'd use a camera, a monitor, or an area of a monitor goes dark temporarily, and you call out a response guys. They'll go and deal with that fairly rapidly. Obviously, it gets a little bit different in CNI environments. You know, it was Sellafield or something like that, that's a slightly different scenario. But the town council or something like that, hopefully within 3 or 4 hours you have your call out guys respond to that and rectify that. But yeah, it's not your bank details or something like that. Worst case, it is a camera. But you know, if you've had proper backup pass, redundancy pass put in place, then that level of mistrust should dissipate a little bit.
I had a discussion with Paul at the end of one of the earlier sessions. The words, I think, are important. You know, you've come out with the word redundancy, which is very important. Backup system, very important. Standby power supplies, very important. As you pointed out, Paul, there are 2 languages here. There's the language of protecting life and property, and the language of technology going forward. And I think this is where it needs to come together.
Any other questions from the floor? If not, I've a question for each member of the panel, if I may. Modern IP-based security systems. What would you see as the greatest benefit and the greatest threat to any system? Over to you first, Suzanne.
Well, I think the biggest benefit is certainly sort of consolidation of resources in terms of saving time, saving money. You're always going to save time and save money when you move away from an archaic analog system or an older system onto a newer IP system. But it's also the scalability of the thing as well. So with an older analog legacy, you've got point-to-point connections. You've maybe got fibre rental contracts running from one analog point to another analog point that can be quite significant, especially when we're talking about sort of city centres and that kind of thing. So the fact that we can control bit rate better now, we can control storage better now, in terms of, for example, with our solution in terms of distributing it, then it does make it more scalable, and you can start to expand your operations, and instead of consolidating it in one, operating from your own little silo, you can sort of operate from sort of multiple sections at any point in the network. So scalability is a massive thing. And saving time, saving money. There's so many more. Just look at a simple CCTV example. Looking to find footage on an analog system. You don't know when it happened. It could be a guy hits another guy in a car parking space. Whereas in a modern sort of VMS, you can draw a box around the car parking space, hit search, and you can search motion and it'll flag up exactly there you go. You've saved, you've saved probably sort of 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, but multiply that how many times a day, how many times a year. So massive amounts of time to be saved and operational efficiencies to be gained as well in terms of consolidation of different systems into perhaps one front end where your operators working more efficiently, for example, not having to manage the access control system or the perimeter detection system. It's all your NPR information, etc. It's all coming back into one front end. In terms of the
Greatest threat.
The greatest threat, not having enough budget to achieve what you want to do and buy loads of megapixel cameras, loads of storage. I think security is always going to be the threat when you move into IP. Any IP, any online network-based system, security will always be a threat. And in terms of how do you protect that, my good friend Lindsay Hamilton over there will tell you.
Yeah, I'll come in on that. The biggest threat is insider users. Everybody thinks the crime's all coming from the outside, but more than 50% of the breaches are carried out by people within the organisation. So privileged users, DBAs, you can put all the security you want around your devices. I know they'll have security on them. If they've got control to open portals, I think the Korean hack, or the supposed Korean hack to Sony last year, was found out to be an insider user who actually opened up a port for somebody to come in from the outside. But the Americans were slagging off the Koreans for doing it all. So insider threat is, you can put all the controls in the firewalls and that's fantastic, but as long as you've got somebody who can control your IT systems, how do you know what they're doing? And then you're dealing with reputational damage and everything else that comes down. That's what's happened with TalkTalk. Share price goes down, client attrition, that's the big hit. So
it's a human factor.
So anything that's got an IP address, you've got to know what's happening. And this is, you'll probably get a lot of the guys will hear about separation of duty and independent controls around. It's not to say you don't trust your IT guys, but there's plenty of stories I've got about people who were trusted who did things. There's one actually, we've all get into stories. There's a bank manager in Edinburgh whose bank manager was here 3 years running. was setting up false mortgages and nobody knew about it, and the only reason he was doing it, he was a good guy, is his family were being threatened outside by crime guys. And that's why he did it. So insider threat is still a big risk area for businesses. Everybody thinks it's cybercrime from the outside. It's part of it, but it's not. So insider threat is...
Benefit and threat from you, Scott?
I think the benefit is, we mentioned closed circuit TV to start with, which is, you know, the old analog, but it was a closed system, so unless you could be in front of it, you couldn't get any information from it. I think what IP is allowing us to do now is to look at everything in a joined up manner. No matter how big, how small, we can now start to encode a solution, so you can show a client a path. So you can say to him, well, you might have 50 different sites or 300 cameras and an access control system, but what we can give you now, we can give you some joined up thinking where you can now migrate a solution, migrate your analog this year, add your IP next year, incorporate your access control, put a piece in it, so we can give that customer now an end-to-end solution across every single area. So if we want to tie his fire systems in, we want to tie, so we're at the point now where you've not got one person doing something, i.e. a fire company doing some business, you are a multidisciplined business now, and you can supply all facets and you can tie it all together. The simple fact you can do that basically means that you can do all the things. We can run smoother, run faster, save money, and have a plan going forward to meet budgets. And I completely agree with you on the other side. I think the biggest threat is it's IP, and if it can be hacked or changed, or somebody can get into that system, then you feel less secure. I think moving forward things will get better. We'll get better security. But I think the overall picture now is that we have a joined up approach, and we can deliver high quality images that are going to be better for the world.
Well, we were talking last night over dinner the fact that probably 80% of the systems out there have still got default passwords and administration usernames, and that's just bad housekeeping. And again, it's down to training and it's down to experience and expertise. And without that, you're just leaving yourself wide open. I think. What's your reaction there?
On the security side, we can put all the mechanisms in place, but as already, it's already been stated, it's down to the users. If they're intent on hacking into the system, then they will find a way of getting into the system. All you can do is try and prevent it with firewalls, content filters, whatever you want to safeguard you put in place. But again, it's down to the users. At the end of the day, physical access is 9/10 of the way in. So there's no real secure 100% system that you can put in place at this moment in time.
No, and you have to let people do their job as well.
Yes.
So if you locked everything down, nobody can do anything.
Well, that's it. It's all about change control, isn't it? We go to so many places and you don't have change control process. You get other people coming in making changes, and they're changing things off the back of what they're doing. And then the next thing is you're getting called in to rectify a problem that somebody else has created. But you don't get to know that until after the event, because there is no such thing really in 90% of the places as a change control. So until we adopt sort of basic safeguards, we're always going to be open to hacks.
Yeah, so I think the benefits, obviously, you mentioned scalability, the flexibility that comes with IPs that you've got. Suddenly 101 different ways of doing something where previously you might only have had 2 or 3. So we're using the word threat here, and threat implies compromise, as in something can be compromised. But just because it's IP, there's also automatic association that it can always be compromised. Analog systems can also be compromised, albeit in a more rudimentary way, i.e. knock out the power or physical damage or something, but they can still be compromised or threatened nonetheless. I think I'd rather talk about challenges in terms of the IP area, where schoolboy errors like passwords or not locking ports up, or in terms of some of the system designs where guys might want to put a whole load of megapixel cameras down a 100 meg pipeline. There'd be things like that where there are still knowledge gaps that need to be closed, both on the design side and in implementation, commissioning, and handing over to the customers as well. So threats, I mean, both analog and IP are susceptible to threats or compromise, but IP does still tend to get labelled with this system that's still very vulnerable and very susceptible, more susceptible to that type of problem than an analog system.
Any more questions from the floor before we tie up things for today? We've been chatting away for nearly 44 minutes. So, any observations or comments from the panel, or perhaps questions to the audience? No? Time for silence?
Can I ask, what's your take on edge storage, like SD storage in my cameras? Have you seen that? Kind of widespread or server based? Or
I think
technically, I prefer it, but I would just use that as a backup.
Yeah, I think
if you were too reliant on edge storage, somebody's been up and steals your camera, there's your footage away. But as a backup,
I think it's true. I think it's good, but the reason for edge storage, a lot of companies out there now are specifying that they want an SD slot for an SD card, and that type of storage is really good. And if you're doing like a snapshot, I think it's great. You know, you can have a unit there, take some snapshots, fantastic. I often find that when they send the user the backup, it's sort of how you do the backup, because generally we're powering this equipment by PoE, and if the PoE goes off, you've got no video anyway, so there's no point having a storage device on the edge when that unit's powered by PoE. I think sometimes we miss that point. I think it's great if the servers go offline, and it can do a little bit of storage, but again, I think sometimes a lot of people are asking for it as a prerequisite, but very rarely use it. I think it's great in certain applications where you've got this storage now and you want to rotate and have that storage going on, say, a 24-hour loop, or you want snapshots going to it and you want to then browse in, fantastic. But as a medium, as it gets better, it may be the fact that we can get a terabyte on one of those units in the coming future, in which case, but then it's how you manage that. If you're browsing into each thing, you still need a VMS to pull it all together. So I think it'll be application driven, and as it gets better, great. But a lot of people are actually specifying it now in tenders that your cameras have to have SD. And when you actually say, well, why? Because we want it.
I think I'd agree with that in terms of we've seen it a few times as well, and it's like, how are you going to play that back? Until we've got like an on-riff standard for playback, if you like, and we're all playing back from using the same sort of standard, then you are going to each individual web page, you are pressing play for the purposes of what. Because if you're able to browse onto the camera, then surely you must be able to browse onto the recorder that's situated somewhere near it. So, but you're just browsing onto a kind of web page. So it's like it's exactly that. It's working out why do they need it? What are they going operationally? What are they going to use it for? And sometimes you get just a requirement because you want it, because you can do it. Yeah. But it's like, and I guess sometimes you're limiting yourself a lot of options that cameras that haven't got edge-based storage just basically to have it. Something else that might do a kind of better job. Certainly for us, because we have obviously no server, and our NVRs can be like a compact NVR that's going to be beside the network switch, local to the camera itself. That would be our kind of next best alternative to be edge storage. So you could have like a 12 terabyte unit that's just situated at the same level as where the switch is, where the camera is. But I think until we have an on-riff playback standard and everybody sort of conforms to that as they do the live video, then I think edge-based storage is in a little silo, it's in a little pocket on its own.
Just the cost of SD cards now, you think? The majority of cameras now, well, a high percentage of them are covered quick with the facility to have the SD card storage. They're so kind of like, why would you not do it? For the cost of £10 just to stick an SD card in, have that backup facility, and just kind of thinking, offer that as an alternative, but certainly not as a prerequisite.
Okay, ladies and gents, I think we'll call it a day. Thank you very much for your involvement this afternoon. Our next event is in Liverpool on the 3rd of March. For those of you who'd like to join us, thanks very much for your participation, and drive carefully. Thank you very much.
Thank you.